There we go. So great. Thanks for dialing in this morning and joining this session. So we'll be covering the CisionPoint Nordic platform today. And it's going to really have two main areas of focus in the session today. We're going to walk through how the contacts area works, and I'll explain what each of those different areas that you see there is for and how you can get the most from them. And I'll do as many kind of real examples as I can for you all. We'll also have a look at releases. So that will be the other main area that we walk through, and I'll create a release in front of you and give you an idea on how all of that works as well. So just before we get into the kind of main areas, a couple of things to point out at the top right of your screen just there. So there's a little person, kind of head and shoulders, just there for you. That's where you can change your password if you want to, or if you have new users on the platform. So if you have a colleague about to join and start using the platform, this is where you can get in touch with Cision support in Sweden and just basically request or give them the information that they need to set the new user up. So all we really need is the sort of name, email and phone number. There's a couple of options around requesting training. So we'll send them the link to the webinar, basically. Whether or not they'll be sending regulatory information, which is something that we'll get onto a little bit later as well. And then there's a two-step authentication option as well. You can use the message as well. If the new user is replacing an existing one, you can just give us the dates when you'd like the switch over to happen, and they will take that from there. Also at the top right, you've got the language settings. I'm going to keep mine in English for the whole thing, but if you do want to change yours to a different language, you have those four options at the top. And then you have the question mark, which is where you can request help and support. So you've got the phone numbers and email addresses just there. There's an out of hours kind of customer support option as well. If you call the number there, you'll basically be kind of diverted through to the support team, and they'll try to get back to you within an hour. You've also got guides. So everything that I show you today is all backed up and explained in a user manual, which is pretty good. Support, as you'd expect. And then if you have any feedback on the platform, you can let us know there. Scheduling training is to sign up for this session. So you might not need that yet, but who knows, a month or 6 months from now, maybe you would like to join another one. So here we go. And my home screen still isn't loading. So what this basically has is, you can see from the headers up there, product information will just be updates that we've made to the platform. So if there's a new feature, maybe you'd like to take a look at that. The inspiration and resources will take you through to some podcasts and blogs. So pretty good. And you can just click into those and it will take you to our site. And then the news feed is industry specific. And I'll show you how you can assign a certain industry to your account. And it's basically just like an update on what's happening within that industry. So it's pretty good. So let's get into the main parts of the platform. So I'm going to kind of work from left to right this morning for you. So I'm going to start with the contacts area, which is sometimes referred to as the Cision database. So it happens with all our platforms. You have it's called something, but people tend to call it by another name. So the contacts in the database is where you can search for media contacts and outlets. So it's a mixture of both. You can build lists onto the platform, which I will run you through as well. And we can also create contacts within the platform that we add to the database. So if you look for a contact on our system, maybe they're not there, or maybe you want to just add in, a colleague or someone that you work with, you can add them into our platform as well. So where I'm going to start is in the lists area. So if we click into it, this is loading, so this is good. That's a relief. So what you can see in there is I've got two kinds of lists to begin with. First of all, I have my lists. So that's any list that me and my colleagues have gone into the platform and created ourselves. What we also have, though, are Cision editorial lists on the platform, which are country specific. So you can see we have Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden on there. And then they're broken down into these subcategories. So if you were looking for business outlets in Sweden, for example, we can click through into those. Or if it's a daily newspaper that you'd like to target, you can see I have these click-throughs there. What that will do is it will take you through to a list of, in this case, it's business and finance sections. So what that will do is it will take me to a list there, and you can see that I can click on the names of any of those outlets that I want to, and I'll do that in a second. Now, what you can see on here as well is some kind of little symbols that we've got and some different metrics pulling through as well. So the orange C that you see on there means that that is a Cision record, basically. So it's an outlet, or it's it's just that. It's an outlet that's been added by Cision. So that means we'll make updates to the profile. We will check that the information is accurate. We will approach that outlet on a regular basis, so at least once a year, but probably more, just to make sure that all the information we present to you is up to date and accurate. You'll also see on there as well that we have a little book symbol. Now, what that denotes is that it's a kind of outlet address. So if you sent something to Dagen's Industry, I apologise in advance for my pronunciation on some of the things that you'll see in the webinar, but as you can see there, it's a generic outlet email address that we would send to. So that's what the little book symbol denotes. Then you have a score, which is on a scale of 1 to 99, with 99 being the maximum or best. And what that is it's looking at an algorithm around reach, visitors per month, that kind of thing, to give you an idea of how big the outlet is. So you can see that it kind of varies between Omni-Economy, I'm not sure about that pronunciation, all the way up to Dagen's Industry on there as well. So if I click through onto one of these, so we'll look at this daily newspaper, what I have on my screen here is the profile page for that. So I get an idea of the email address or the phone number if I want to get in touch with them. I've also got the stats around the frequency or its circulation as well, and whether or not it's a national or a regional outlet or magazine, for example. We can see that from there. We can see the topics that newspaper covers. This is something I'm going to show you in a sec, where you can actually look for business and finance titles or economy equities titles. You can find those by searching as well. And we've also got the categories that they cover too. So you can see all of that listed out there for you. Now, just underneath and towards the left, you have a breakdown of the contacts at that outlet. So what I could do there is, if I was interested in finding out more about Adam here, I can click through onto his profile, and from there I can see his email address and other contact information. I can see the categories that Adam covers. So if I have a report on the economy coming out, maybe I would want to add Adam onto one of my lists. So we can do that from here. And you can see that I've already got a couple of lists on there built, some of them built by my colleagues, and I can see when they've been updated and last worked on as well. But if I go back to the outlet profile as well, what we can also do is add the outlet onto a list. So if I thought Dagen's Industry would be really good for my EU transparency list, I can just update it from here, click on add, and you can either add them to a brand new list or just work with one of the existing ones. So entirely up to you on how you do it. And if you want to put multiple contacts onto a list in one go, so if I liked the look of all 4 of those and thought, great, let's add them to a list or create one, we can do that from here. So that's one of the lists and the kind of options that you have with that. If you want to search though en masse and find lots of outlets or lots of contacts in a particular industry or that cover a particular topic. We can also do that from here. So if we go into the search area, there you go, there's the search interface, which is pretty straightforward because you basically have the options that you want to use at the top, followed by a text box. So you can use quick search in exactly the way you would imagine. You could put the name of somebody in, or if you just have an email and you would like to look at their profile, you can do that from there. You can even use it with phone numbers or just cities. So if you put Stockholm in, for example, you can just run that through the platform. What I wanted to show though, because quick search is quite self-explanatory, what I wanted to run through though is just a couple of what we call extended searches with you. So if you imagine you have this brand new subscription with the platform and you think, okay, it would be good to first of all find outlets within a particular what we call module. So if I wanted to find outlets in Sweden that cover a particular topic, I can do that from here. Now, if I start typing in, it will find me any matches to that. What I'd recommend though, when you're new to the platform, is to use the browse option, because what that does is it lists out all of the different topics that you have at your kind of available. So in there, if you were working on something to do with agriculture and farming, but it was specific to agricultural equipment or fishing and farming, this is a way for you to see how the topics are all laid out and what we've got on the platform as well. So I'm just going to pick the top one and then just add that in there. You can do this with multiple topics as well. So if you do want to add something else, it's absolutely fine. And then if I run that through the platform, this is my results screen. Now it looks pretty similar at the bottom to what we've already seen. We kind of had a list and I explained what the symbols and the scoring system is there for. But interestingly, what we can do at the top is we can refine this. So if you were looking through the results and thought, okay, I really wanted, just magazines. Some of these, look to be online or sort of microblogs. What we can do at the top is we can filter that however we want to. So if I just wanted to filter that or restrict it to magazines, we can do that from there. Maybe I just want to target outlets that have a frequency monthly. We can do that from there as well. So what I can do at this point is take all of those agricultural results, and add them onto a list straight away if I need to. And I can edit my colleagues' list if we're working on a project together. We can do that from here, which is pretty good. Now you've also got the option to save that search and come back to it a bit later on. So if you're not sure what to do with the results, or you aren't sure how you need to refine this, just use the little disk button at the top there and you can come back to it. And then when you go into your search screen, just there, you'll see your saved searches at the top. There you go. So you can go in there. There's a test one, obviously. So I could just see what that was, run it through the platform. And there you go. And it shows me how that search was done. So if you're using a colleague save search, it's really good. You can even see the topics, how they filtered it, and then you can build that list up if you want to as well. You've also got some more filtering options on the left as well. So if you do want to kind of refine it by language as well, we can do that too. So once you've kind of done some searching and you've got your lists in place, you can start using those from here. Now, if you want to, there's an option to import a list as well. So when you do this, if you click on import list from the top there, you select the file that you want. So it's a TXT or an XLSX file. And you just need to let the platform know whether it's Windows or Mac that you're using. Then you follow the steps through to that to complete the process. I'm using a kind of test or a demo account, so it doesn't actually let me do it, just so that I can't ruin the database basically. But in there, that's where you'd be able to kind of work with that. You can also create folders as well. So if you want to organize this area in a particular way, it's entirely up to you, and you can manage that however you want to. You can also delete lists as well. So if you want to tidy the platform up a little bit from time to time, that's all on there as an option as well. Now, I mentioned earlier that in addition to searching our contacts and building up your own lists, you'll also have the option to manage and create contacts of your own. So with Cision, obviously we have very, very comprehensive databases, but sometimes a contact or an outlet doesn't want to be on them for one reason or another. So we give you the option, if you want to create a new one in there. There we go. You can create either a contact or an outlet. So you just tick the boxes. And it's pretty much, you just need to fill in the fields. Now, the only mandatory one is the name that you see there. It's a good idea, though, to put an email in as well, just so that if you're sending distributions through the platform, you can send to that contact via CisionPoint, basically. And you can also add them to a list from here. So if you add John Smith, for example, and you think John would be great for my EU transparency list, let's add him on there. We can just do that too. These contacts that you add are only visible on your account as well, so nobody else sees them or anything like that. And then what you'll be able to do is manage them via the part there called Own Contacts, just there. And you can see that there's my colleague, Frida, who is in the Swedish onboarding team and training team. So Frida has added herself into the database, and you can see that Frida's status is currently green. Now, when you have that little green symbol there, it means that that contact has been added in the last 30 days, so they're new. After 30 days, it will change to black, which is fine. If it goes red, that's a little bit of a kind of thing to check in on. When it goes red, it means that we've tried to deliver an email to that email address 3 times, but it's failed. So for whatever reason, just go in and check any contacts that you've added. If there are any typos in the email addresses, you can just go in and edit those contacts from here. There we go. And we've just got the edit or delete button as well. So all pretty good on there. You've also got some settings in the contacts area as well. It's really around when you kind of run your searches and you're looking at your lists, it gives you an idea of what information is displayed on there as well. So I've got it set in a quite straightforward way to just sort of emails and media types and names. If you do want things like circulation, for example, or frequency, you can include those in there too. So there we are. So that is how the contacts area kind of works, all the way through from searching, building up some lists, and then creating contacts of your own and managing them. Now, another key part, and as I said at the top, a main area that we'll walk through on today's call is the part called releases. And you can see that that's made up of those 6 different areas. And what I thought I would show you just to begin with is something called assistance. Now, later in the call, I will create a release in front of you, walk you through every step and give you some tips on how that all works in there. But with assistance, some of our clients want Cision to create the distributions for them. And that could be time reasons, maybe you don't have enough time to do it, or sometimes people are a little bit apprehensive using a platform like this for distribution, and they just want the peace of mind to know that everything is under control and Cision have taken care of it. So what we would ask you to do here is you can give us information around what the distribution is. So whether it's a press release you would like us to send, or maybe it's your year-end report or an annual report that you're working on. Now, these information types I'll show you as we go through, and I'll show you how these are kind of used a little bit later on as well. We have a tick box here, which we'll also cover a little bit later, which is whether or not the release is regulatory information. And with that, you have to distribute to certain channels, or we recommend that you distribute to certain channels. So we would want to know that information right from the off. And we've also got, if you want us to post that to NASDAQ non-regulatory news, we can include that in there. Now, if you imagine we're going to create this release for you or with you, so if there are any attachments or documents that you want included, so PDFs or maybe some JPEGs, we can work on those, and you just add them in to as a file. Then you give us the all-important contact info, so we know who to get in touch with if we need any more information, or we just need to, verify something with you. The additional information, try to be as specific as possible, so they have exactly what they need to get that distribution going for you, and then they will let you know once it's ready. Now, there's the option for you to send at a specific time, or you can say to them, we need this out immediately. So if there's a breaking story that you need to get out there, immediately, we can do that. If not, though, you can just let us know the time. So if I wanted to send that out on, I think that's Sunday, or maybe Monday would be better, we can just pop the times in there and we are good to go as well. Now, for those of you working in different time zones, you can actually change that if you need to as well. So you have all of that on there. So if I wanted to do it, it's actually very sunny in London today, so I can set London in as my time zone. All pretty good. If there's anything you want to discuss, or you have any concerns or anything like that, just give the guys a call and they will walk you through it and answer your questions with you as well. So there we go. Now that's if you decide to send via assistance. If you want to do it on your own, you can create releases yourselves. And I'm going to do an example with you. I won't send anything for real because I don't think that would be a good idea. But if I click on create release just at the top, here we are. Now from the top, you've also got the option to request assistance here. So if you start the process and then think, I'm only halfway through, I've saved it as a draft, you could then request assistance and they'll kind of take things from there. Now, I'll cover what a profile is and why they are really useful and a really good time saver. We'll cover those as we go. If you've halfway through a job and you get called into a meeting or you finish for the day, you can always resume. It will give you a save option in the platform too. And you can see there that I've got some drafts on the go. But I'm going to imagine that this is my first release ever, and it's my first time in the platform. So if I go through to new release, just there, it gives me a little warning saying, you were working on something, it will be overwritten. So let's continue and say okay to that. As you may have guessed, this is a demo site. I think I mentioned it, but it doesn't let me forget that. There's a subtle reminder at the top of my screen. Now what I need to do here is I've got some quick save and save as draft and quit buttons, which do exactly what you would expect. And you've also got the profile just there, and I'll explain what this does in a sec and why that's useful. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're sending anything via the platform, or if you request assistance from us and we send it, an important thing to consider is whether or not the information in that release is around regulatory matters or topics, basically. So when you have that box ticked, the platform will recommend that you add the following services to your release. Now, I'll cover Cision News and my website a little bit later, but in there you can see that we have these financial markets on there. So we have Website Network, Wire Nordic, NASDAQ First North Filing, and EU Transparency Wire. And you can see a little bit of information about each of those on there. Now, there's a shortcut that the platform will let me take. So if I want to add all of those as my channels that I'm sending to, I can add them all from here. Now, when you do that, there you go, it will automatically go through and add them for you. It lets you know as well who the recipients are on the right. So it gives you a little reminder around which language you're working in. So in my example, would probably want to change that, and I can do that just from the top. There we go. So we have, it's now in English. Now the industry, my account is set to medicine. If I wanted to, though, to send something out that wasn't necessarily specific to medicine, maybe it was around health, which is kind of similar, but maybe I feel it's better suited to the health industry. Where that comes into effect later is on the Cision newsroom itself. So if I go onto the page here, there you go. So this is the home page for news.cision.com. You can see that I can filter that by industry. So if I was looking for health in here, I could say, okay, great, show me all of the health ones, and then it takes me to those. So that's an important step because you can basically, guide the users to your announcement just by, the filters that they have there. I'll mention some of the other filtering options that you have on Cision News as we go. Now you can see that with Website Network and Wire Nordic and the transparency wire, everything is fine. I'm all good to go. When it comes to the categories, though, I need to tell it which specific area of NASDAQ First North this distribution is applicable to. So whether it's an annual report, or maybe it's a company description, or an interim information announcement, I can select that from there. So it's probably worth familiarizing yourselves with what each of those options is for, just to make sure that you distribute to the right one. You can also see that with these, I'll just tick one. There you go. What you can also see is that it says per agreement, 0 of 24 distributions used. Now, basically, the way that works is, as part of your service, you can buy or you can subscribe to certain distributions to certain channels in there. What you might see, if there's no subscription in place, is it gives you a cost. So it gives you the price for each channel and a distribution to it. If you're not sure about that, or you want to kind of know more about subscriptions, just get in touch with your sales rep or the support team just to find out a little bit more about that. So it may look a little bit different on your own accounts, so just bear that in mind. Now, what we'd also recommend is that with any release, you include Cision News and your website if you want to on there as well. So with that, I'm going to build you the Cision News one in front of you and let you see it like a preview and give you an idea on how that works as well. I'm also going to untick just for now that the release is regulatory, just in case I send anything out. Now with that, when I mentioned earlier that profiles are a good idea, the reason for that is if you have a release that is going out and you think, I don't really want to keep adding these as recipients every time, I want it to be in English, it's a health-related press release, you can save that as a profile, like so, and then you just give that a name. And you can see that there's a few on there. There's like a Swedish and English one or a test one on there as well. So feel free to start utilizing the profiles as you go along. And let's just remove some of these financial ones as well. So I'm just going to take those out just for the demonstration on there. So I've got Cision News and my website, and there's also some partner channels. So this is what I mentioned, or I was kind of referring to, where you have the pricing. So if I didn't have a subscription to direct premium news as part of my service, you can see I have the price there for each release going out as well. You've also got the option to post to social media as well, but quite often people don't include those at this point, as the way that they post to Twitter or Facebook may be quite a bit less formal, for example. So where we're sending to those, financial partners, there's very corporate, or it's very sort of business-like. So if you want to kind of post to social media, you can, but the feedback that we usually get is that people tend not to. Now, if I carry on going to the bottom, you can see that I've got my lists that I worked on. So there's the My Lists area just there, along with the editorial lists as well. Now, when it comes to my lists, I can't actually edit them from here, but if I wondered who was on a particular list, I can use the eye symbol. So if I click on there you go, and it lets me see that there are 77 contacts and outlets on that, and I can just make a decision there whether or not I want to send to my EU list as well. If at this point you want to go back and edit the list, as I mentioned earlier, those are all stored in there and all good to go. Now, what we're going to do next is run through, and I'm going to click next on there. There we are. And we'll build the distribution ourselves. Now, my one has a Cision logo because it knows that we've uploaded that previously and we've used that. What I'll show you though is how you can store different logos and images in the platform. Those are in something called the media bank. So you won't have to choose a logo or upload it every single time, because that would slow you down and it would be quite boring to have to keep doing that. So I'll show you where you can store all of those as well. Now you have the option, or different options, to build this release however you want to. So you can type in there, I could say Cision announces social listening platform, which is true. It's about 6 months old. So I could put that in as my headline, or I'd maybe want to add a lead paragraph to that too. But what I would probably want to do with a platform like this is, if I already have the information in a document, and maybe I created it, or maybe my boss sent it to me and said, this is what we need to distribute. So over to you, get this into the CisionPoint Nordic platform and work with that. If I import my Word document and choose the file, so I'm going to do that from here. So I need to go into my documents in there, and there is one. So if I import this Word document, what you might notice happens is, there you go. It brings me up a message and says, do you want to add these attachments? Sorry, do you want to add these images as attachments? So it basically scans my document and it gives me the option to create them as like downloadable attachments. Or if I just want those images in the body, I can choose whether or not, it's an attachment or what I need to do here. You can edit this later as well. So if you accidentally click continue and think, I should have done that differently, it's absolutely fine. You can undo that a bit later. But what you'll see on the right is that I'm starting to build this up, and I've got my attachments in there as well. So the way that I've created my Word document, I haven't used headers and footers. I've pretty much just got a kind of wall of text. Now the reason, or because I haven't used headers and footers, what the platform does is it just takes all of the information and puts that in the body. So if you're using Word the way that I do, which is probably not the most sophisticated or best way of using it, what you would need to do is just tidy things up a little bit from there. And this could be maybe my lead in to the text. There you go. We'll put that in as well. So you can see that I can just kind of work with this and edit it as I'm going along. There we are, and we can tidy that up a little bit too. Now with each of these, I have some editing options at the top. So I'll show you a bit later on how you can set certain fonts as a profile or in your settings in the platform. But if for any reason I wanted to change these, I can just do it from here. So I can just choose the font or change the heading size and style. We have all of that in there as well. Now you'll notice it's a little bit different with the paragraph. So if I want to include a link to something in there, we can do that all pretty good. You've got that, or if I want to bullet point something as well. And then just underneath, I've got the body text where I've got even more editing options. And I can just put in, align the text or put links in there or images as well. So it's all fairly kind of self-explanatory and straightforward as we go through it. Now, underneath, if I keep scrolling, I have my attachments. So when I said earlier, if you forget to attach something or you accidentally click continue or anything like that, you have the option to upload those as well. Now, if you've brought through an image that is in that Word document or your upload, the platform will automatically put that image into the Cision News site. So you can actually choose to hide it just so that it's visible only as an attachment or a download, and you can remove it from there as well if need be. And then what we have there is the option to upload a primary PDF attachment. Now we can upload our own if we have one, or if we want the platform to generate a PDF based on what we've created above, we can do that from here. So if I just grab a PDF from mine, so I'm just going to upload one, and there we are. We'll just add that in, and it's loading. There we go, perfect. We can change that at any point as well, or we can rename it. So if I wanted to change that in any way, you can see that I can edit that or remove it completely if I change my mind. Now, something as well that you've got the option to do, which again is a time-saving tip or tool, is if I wanted to put my contact details in there, I don't really want to have to keep typing these out every time I use the platform. So what I can do here is I can save that as a contact detail, and then all I use is a drop down in there. So you get the idea. You would save that, and your colleagues can have them as well. So and I've just realized that I can't spell my own name, so I probably don't want that as a saved profile just yet, but you could do that if you needed to as a time saver. Also, same applies with About Us. So if I had a little bit of text about Cision and what we're working on or what we're doing or our history, I probably wouldn't want to keep having to write that out. So I can just save that in there too. Now at the bottom, you've also got the option to tag this distribution. Now, if I go back to Cision News, earlier when I said we could look at the health industry and we could filter it from there, all pretty good. We've also got the tags though, and you can see that these tags, they're pretty eclectic really. You have kind of things like health in there as well, but there might be the names of treatments or drugs or even certain professionals in the health industry. So what you could use this for as tags is you could basically create some of your own. These could be the names of a company, a spokesperson, a product, and basically what you're doing there is just making it really easy for visitors to the newsroom to just find the information that they're looking for quite quickly as well. We've also got the option to edit the text version of this. Now we can preview the release in different ways. So if I wanted to check this out on Cision News, for example, there you go, it's looking pretty good. I've got my contact details there with my name spelled correctly now, amazing. All my links are working, so I can sort of direct people to where I want to go, and they can download the screen grab of the platform itself from there too. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now in there as well, when it comes to the Cision News site, we can include some links if we want to. So if we wanted to put a link to the Cision website or anything that we're working on, we can send them there. We can put some quick facts in as well, or some quotes. So I will show you on there what that looks like as an end result. There you go. So we've got our documents. Snab factor, I assume, is the quick fact. And then citat, not sure pronunciation wise. I'm guessing that is the quotes. And you can see that Annalie is quoted just there. So there is an example of how that will end up looking for you as well. Now, at any point, as I say, we can save this. We can save it as a draft and come back to it a little bit later as well. So all looking pretty good so far. Now, if I click onto the next button, there you go. I have another preview. So I can make sure that everything is there. I've got my PDF, I have my logo and my screenshots, all looking good so far. If I want to go back and change anything, absolutely fine. We can do that from there too. And then if we click on the publish settings as well, we need to choose whether that goes out immediately, whether or not we schedule that. So we would put the date and the time that we would want that to go out as well. Or we have this option, save as ready to send. So if something is just that and we're ready and we've got it saved, we can come back into the platform and that will be stored in, you can see there in my releases, where you can see that if anything is saved and stored, we can come back to it a little bit later as well. If you want copies sent to anyone, you can put email addresses in there too. Now, once we confirm that, what I think the support team will do is they will get in touch with you via email or text for you to verify that that release is to go out and that you give consent to it going, just so that nothing is sent accidentally. So yeah, it's a kind of safety net that you have just there. Now, once the release has gone out, my releases will store information on, there we are, our sent releases. So we have something that went out in January. We can see that in there. If we have anything scheduled or ready to send, we can do that. If awaiting review is if you've sent it across to us and our guys are just reviewing it before confirming it's good to go. And we've also got the drafts there as well. So if I wanted to come back to this job or maybe just delete it completely because I no longer need it, we can manage that all from in here too. The assistance ones, as I mentioned, if we send something out as well, there you go. We can see who that was created by, whether it was regulatory or not, when it was due to go out, so as soon as possible there, and the date that all took place. So there's a record of everything, of all these distributions, regardless of the stage that you happen to be at. Now, once the releases go out, you can pull some statistics from the platform too. So maybe it's been a week since your release has gone out and you want to see maybe some stats around either the newsroom or if you've sent it as an email, maybe the delivery stats. So any bounces or sort of open rates. So you can see that I've got one here. This is for my English newsroom. For the past, trying to work out the dates, it's gone backwards. Well, you get the idea. For the last couple of months, let's say, it's too early for me to work out what that actually is in dates. But in there, you can see that I've got all of that going through, and I can see if there's spikes in visitor numbers. So if we put out a distribution on the 2nd of January, we can see there we're doing really well on the 3rd, and you had a couple of visitors to the newsroom. We can also check in on particular releases as well. So there is my test one on the platform, and you can see there delivered 0, opened 100%. So I'm not sure how that would really work, but you've got the stats all coming through. Or if it's failed, you can keep an eye on whether or not that's gone through on there as well. So all looking pretty good at this point. If you want to as well, you can have some actions at the top where you can copy those recipients. So if you wanted to follow up with Christian and Frida, we can do that too. And you also have the option to export these stats into a PDF. So if you want to share that with the rest of the team, we can do that from here as well. Also in the releases, I mentioned with logos and things like that, if you don't want to keep uploading them, or working with them again and again from scratch, you can store them in your media bank, which if I click in there, this lets me monitor all of my images or files that I've uploaded into the platform there. So you can see that we've got some stuff that we've uploaded already. You'll notice at the top that there's all media and published media. So we've published this flower image to the site, but we've got all of the others private to us so that we can just go through and have a look at them. We can filter these out as well if we're looking for just our images, for example. And if we've tagged any of them, so maybe like logo or exterior shot or dog, I guess, or hund, we can go in and we can add those little tags in as we go along as well. And those are visible to all users on your account, so you can check in on what's been uploaded and is good to go. You've also got in here some settings. Now, this is probably something to have a quick look at when you start out in the platform. As I said, you can default to a particular industry or speciality. So you can set that from the off. Otherwise, it will just default, I think, to unspecified. You have that in there. We can check in on our content as well. So when it comes to the about information or links to our social media channels, we can manage all of that within here as well. So what we have in here will convert into what we see up there. So all pretty good, straightforward. When it comes to the design of the newsroom, this is where you can change, the particular fonts that you want to use, or if there's a color scheme or anything like that you think, yeah, this would be pretty good, we can make this really on brand, you can do that from there. What we recommend is using the codes that you've got on there, but you can use the palette to find the colors that you want. But to make it really on brand, get the coding from there. Your newsroom as well will also have a calendar on there. So if you do have the option or have the luxury of being able to meet up with people or some events, you can put those on there so that I can, find out what's happening as well. We have, as I said, our social channels and also the option to change our fonts from here as well. So as you can see, right from the top, whether it's creating a release yourselves from scratch, we've kind of done the walkthrough and you see the steps involved with that. Maybe it's sending with assistance. Maybe you need a little bit of help on there with some things. We can take care of that for you. And then the rest really is just monitoring, what you've got worked on or what you've sent out and the stats for it, along with the media bank and your settings as well. I didn't mention it earlier, but you also have the option to view and manage the subscribers to your website. So if we click through on there, there we are, freed it again. So if I want to add a new subscriber or export the data that you see there, we can export that into a CSV file from here as well. And as I say at the top and mentioned the button, obviously I've walked through everything with you this morning and given you a chance to see it. But if you do want to consult the guides or maybe just give someone a call and say, I was on the webinar, but I forgot to ask a certain question, they can then assist with those as well. Or, as I say, if you want to book on for one, maybe in a couple of weeks to see how you're getting on, and if you have any questions, then feel free to do that from the platform. There you go. So